Om Namah Shivaya. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Pyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namah. So the section of this text that we are now currently doing, as a reminder to you, is specifically concerned with going from a very clear idea of viveka-based vichara, which talks about both a unchanging Atma and the changing Jagat superimposed upon it. So this was the first step. Then comes the more difficult step, which is now what we are studying, which is to now transform this vision of Viveka, which still has Dvaita, Sakshi and Sakshya, Viveka, Dvaita, into Advaita. So because until a sense of completeness is understood by a person, the mere Dvaita helps to a large degree, but it is not total freedom. It's not moksha. Moksha will only come when the sense of otherness in the world also disappears. And so, you know that example of the rich man who was in Calcutta, who looked upon this boy as somebody who was bothering him. And as soon as he realized this is my own son, his own attitude completely changes. So exactly like that, at this point, the world that we interact with looks like it's other than me. But then, actually it is not. And for us to understand that it is none other than me is the final moksha, is the moksha, not a final, it is the moksha, which was already always there but not understood. So this is the section of the text that we are now looking at, and this requires mananam, a lot of mananam, which we will now very slowly get into. So here, in terms of, again, the understanding of mananam and shravanam and so on, one thing that we should think about, and this is all suggested by Swami Akhandananda, so please, this is not just me talking. You should understand that. Swami Akhandananda says that Shastra does not stipulate how you live. That is not the concern of the Shastra. If you want to live in a particular way, whatever you choose to do, good path, bad path, something in between, it's all individual choice and so on. But once you understand the direction of seeking truth through whatever, however you came to the right, to the right guru and the right shastra and the right teaching and the right satsang and the right friends, whatever happens, and it happens. Once you do what Shravanam means, how you should think. So Shravanam means that instead of, and so this is also tied to the words vasana, as we started with the quite a bit of discussion on the vasana in the early parts of this course. And so how you live, whatever you want to do, whatever your lifestyle is, whatever profession you choose, friends you choose, is all based on vasanas. It all depends on where you were born, what your parents were, which school you went to, college, friends, influences, politics, all of those is all vasanas. And the Shastra says, okay, continue with it. It's okay. Whatever you want to do, we'll support you. But suppose you discover there's something very interesting, important, and funny going on about who I am, what's happening. The Shastra says, okay, now that you have taken my refuge, Sharanam, if you've taken the refuge of the Shastra, then I am now ready to help you. You don't have to do it alone. You please follow my directions. It's like you ask somebody, this is where I want to go. So they'll ask you, are you sure? Is this all pakka? Yes, this is what I want to go. I'm sure this is what I want to go. Then it says, okay, let me give you the GPS for it. So that's exactly what happens. You have to really put down the address and so on. Then the rest of the instructions are now given to you. So the instructions on what to do, what to think, how to do, is what is called Shravanam. That's what Shravanam is. And it's not a very simple thing. The Tattva Bodha and Vedanta Sara, etc. is just the beginning. It's kind of like a very, if you want to climb Mount Everest, there's a lot of details about where to go, where to have the base camp. So all of that has to be absorbed. But this all means instructions. At this point, this is all instructions. How to think is this is what is called Adhyatmika Vidya. Adhyatmika Vidya, I remember we had discussed this in the very beginning, that it is not easy to translate into English. So the Adhyatmika Vidya here means Atma Adhikritya Vidya Yasmat or Yasya or Yaha. Means that up to now you are not centered on your own self. You're only centered on your manifestation as a human being, which is very reasonable. If you think you are just a human being, then there are, so certainly some eligibility is there, dharma, artha, kama, etc. But those are all based on your own upasanas, your own vasanas. But suppose you say, I am clear about where I want to go. So that first stage is non-clarity. You're moving around, you're not really moving towards a fixed target. But if you were to discuss a fixed target, if you were to discover, not discuss, sorry, if you were to discover a fixed target which appears to be the place where there is complete joy and freedom. And if you're convinced of that through the words of Ishvara from the Shastra, then you do Anubhuti. So, important thing to have the Anubhuti means Anu. Means you are following the instructions of Ishvara. So this is what is called Shravanam. Means how to think, what to think, how to get there. This is all part of Shravanam. Then comes Mananam. And what Mananam is, not how to think, but to think. The first one is the GPS. If you want to look at it from that standpoint, once you start driving and you follow the instructions on your, I'm not going to say iPhone because my son works for Google, and so I'm just going to say Pixel phone, which is what I have. I have a Pixel phone. In our family, we only have Pixel phones with the exception of Pammi. She has an iPhone. So if you have your Pixel phone and you get your GPS all done there, then you start driving. And so now the transition from Shravanam to Mananam is you now start leading your life based on the suggested thoughts of the Shastra. That's really what it is. And sometimes you get frustrated. I'm not making any progress. This is what people generally think. I still have likes and dislikes. People still upset me. And am I going in the right direction? So the Shastra holds our hands and says, yes, that's very normal. That's very normal. On the way to that, you get tired, you get frustrated, that's very normal. Keep going, keep going. So this whole process is now looked at in a little bit more detail in this section that we are doing. So let's pick up the thread on this. So here, the general guidelines for this thinking is to see that all particular manifestations are a part of a content which is not particular. So Swami Akhandananda just gives one example. This is one of many. He says that he told his son that if you pass this exam, I'll give you mithai, sweets. So the son said, okay. And he passed the exam and he says, give me mithai. So his father and mother gave him some rasagulla. So he says, no, I don't want rasagulla, I want mithai. So they said, okay, they gave him a peda. This is what we get so beautiful, all these things from our kitchen. And he says, no, I don't want peda, I want mithai. They said, Baba, this is all mithai. So that's exactly our situation in life. We get tied down to some particular viewpoints, not realizing that all viewpoints are nothing but my manifestations. These are really all specific in the content of the non-specific, which is me. This is the growth that we have to do. And so here, our Shastra gives us a very good analytical tool to show that really, even though it doesn't look like it in the beginning, all ornaments belong to gold. Similarly, all manifestations belong to the Atma. The Atma itself has no changes, but everything that is contained in the Atma, everything, how can it be contained in the Atma? This is the interesting thing we have to see. So everything is contained in the Atma. I'll explain in a minute. But the contained material doesn't change. So this is what is called Vivarta Upadana Karanam. As you know, the students of Vedanta know this very well. So there are various changes that occur in life. So one change is what is called Parinama Upadana Karanam. Parinama Upadana Karanam means, Upadana means the material, the basic material. So Parinama Upadana Karanam means that the previous state is given up, a new state is obtained. Right? So this is what is called, this is a definition I remember Swami Dayanandji had given it to us, and it is there in many of the Shastric literature. Swaswarupa, this is just the Sanskritam. Swaswarupa parityagena rupantara apattihi iti parinama karanam. Swaswarupa parityagena. Your own nature you give up and you obtain a different nature. The typical example of that is yogurt, milk becoming yogurt. So once the milk turns into yogurt, you cannot turn it back. It's a one-way change. So this is what is called parinama karanam. Swaswarupa parityagena, having given up the swaswarupa, rupantara, another rupa, grasping another rupa, is called parinama karanam. But then there is another change in life. This is called Vivarta Upadana Karanam. And the Vivarta Upadana Karanam is what we need to focus on. So the Shastra says that believe it or not, you better believe it. Have Shraddha. But it says, I know it doesn't look like it, but have the Shraddha. Your changes in life are like that of gold and the various ornaments in the gold. That definition means swaswarupa apparityagena rupantara apattihi iti vivarta upadana karanam. Means without giving up its own form, you take up supposedly another form, without giving up the originality. This is called vivarta upadana karana. So the ornaments, the birth of ornaments, the creation of the ornaments is like vivarta upadana karana. So at least we should know the different types of changes that occur. Okay? Then the Shastra says, may you see, my dear student, may you see that your life is like a vivarta upadana karanam, not parinama upadana karanam. We think it is parinama upadana karanam. How do we think it is a parinama upadana karanam? It's very obvious. We give up our childhood. It's gone forever. It's like milk turning into yogurt. The childhood's gone. Youth comes. Youth goes. Middle age comes. Middle age goes. Old age comes. We think it is all parinama karanam. And we accept it. That's how whatever we say, this is my experience. I accept it. Shastra says, this is what is called Anubhuti. So when you say Aparokshanubhuti, Anubhuti means see it the way it is, not the way you think it is. And the way it is your life is vivarta upadana karanam, not parinama upadana karanam. And at first it looks, no, it doesn't fit. I don't see it. At first you protest, your mind protests. It doesn't look like it. You're telling me something which is contrary to experience. You see, this is the thing. Knowledge is not opposed to experience. In the book, one of the very first books that Swami Dayanandji wrote, and it came about, I remember when he was in the PRC, he was dictating this, and we had mother and daughter, they were both with us at PRC. And the mother's name was Barbara. She was a lawyer. In fact, when Swamiji formed the Harsha Vidya Peetham, then when he became independent from Chinmaya Mission, Barbara was the lawyer. She was on a 5-person board with me. I was the secretary, and she was the lawyer, and we had 3 or 4 other people. And so all the articles of creation and so on were done by her. Wonderful student. So Barbara transcribed some talks by Swamiji in the book called Introduction to Vedanta. I don't know if you have a copy of that. They are almost not there anymore, I believe. They're very difficult to get. In that book, this description about knowledge and experience is very clearly done by Swamiji. So Swamiji says in that book, look at sunrise. The sunrise is an experience. Whether you have a 2-year-old sitting there or you have a 60-year-old sitting there, they both have the same experience. But The 2-year-old doesn't have the knowledge of the experience. The 60-year-old, hopefully, and not hopefully, will have the knowledge of the experience. The knowledge of the experience is that sun doesn't rise. Actually, the earth is rotating and it makes the sun visible to you, and the sun was always sitting there, unchanging, and the earth is moving. I know, I think I was telling some students that at some time when the sun rises, I really enjoy that. I can visualize and practically see the movement of the earth. You just follow this. It's not easy, and maybe it's my imagination. It is so slow. It's not like it is rotating like this, which is another wonder of the world. Can you believe how... Do you know what, if I ask you, are you moving? So you'll say, no, I'm not moving, I'm sitting. That's not true. You are moving so fast you couldn't even visualize it. I don't know, I think I need to really consult what rate we are moving at any one time. And even that is relative, because you are moving as part of the earth, which is moving very fast, but the whole galaxy is moving with respect to the whole cosmos at a very fast rate. The whole thing is... Ishvara must be winking at us and says, what a creation I've made. None of the people think they are moving, but you cannot believe how fast you are moving. Amazing. I remember Swami Dayananda used to say this. He says, you know what? I don't marvel at the macrocosmic creation as much as the microcosmic creation. So what do you mean by that? You know, the fact of the matter is, it looks like a stable table. This is a stable table, just sitting there. Is there any doubt about it? No. It's the same place that it was last night, same place it was there yesterday. And if nobody moves it, it'll stay at the same place, nice and quiet. The fact is, it is moving. And not the movement I'm talking about, that is the macrocosmic movement. Microcosmically, it has nothing but inside it electrons and protons moving so fast you can't follow it. In fact, because you cannot follow it, it looks stable. And not only that, I think that another interesting thing, just this is a little bit digressing from the main topic, but when you hit your hand to it like this, you think that I am a solid body, my hand is a solid body, the table is a solid body, and the two of them are, you cannot get one solid body to go into the other one. This is what we think. You know what the fact of the matter is? Your and my hand is, and I think I'm going to get tired of this, 99.999999999% space. If I had more time, I would have just kept on. If you had more time, you would have just go say 9999. Really speaking, this is what science says is. There is complete space. The amount of space that, and even that is not a solid material. The electrons and the protons are also waves. There is no solidity. There is no solidity in the table. There is no solidity in the hand. These are magnetic forces that are repelling each other. There is no solidity. Anyway, let's go back to the main topic that we were doing. I'm just giving you the illustration of all this. In fact, it's interesting, this is going to come in some other ways. I'll explain that in a minute. The main topic is that knowledge and experience have a funny relationship. The 2-year also feels, as well as the 60-year-old, that the sun rises. But for a 60-year-old, the experience does not change, but the knowledge of the experience is different. Why I say this is because this is what we have to see in looking at my life not as parinama upadana karanam, but as vivarta upadana karanam. And this is a fact that I have to see. What is happening is that I, as an Atma, has the whole set of experience as though it's my ornament. This is my manifestation, my thoughts, my conclusions, my attitudes. As Swami Viditatmananda was saying yesterday, this is what is called Jiva Shrishti. There is a Ishvara Shrishti. Ishvara Srishti means that he is the one who has created these distinctions between solid objects, moving objects, people, devatas, animals, all of that is given to you. But how you take it is your own world. So, for example, you have the same person. Let's say there's a woman. How anybody looks at that lady is all different from their relationship. How her daughter or son looks at her is totally different from the way her neighbor looks at her, from her employer looks at her husband looks at her if she's married. They're all different views. It's the same woman. So the woman is like a Ishvara Shrishti. But how you look at her is Jiva Shrishti. The thing that she doesn't change. But the ideas of the people that is interacting with her are all different, they can change. So similarly, really speaking, these are my ornaments, individualized ornaments. So this is a possibility of an ornament which is defined by Ishvara. But then how I am looking at it becomes my ornament. And the interesting thing now is, having understood that much, we should see that this ornament, even though it is changing and appears to change, doesn't change me. Like if you are gold, you enjoy having all these ornaments, whether they are well made or not well made. In the eyes of someone, it will be very beautiful. In the eyes of some other people, it's not well made. It's not beautiful. It's still gold. Doesn't matter to the gold. That's exactly what the situation is. Really speaking, we are an unchanging Jnana Swarupa. And if there are waking stages, that's one set of ornaments. If there is a dream state, that is another state of ornaments. If there is one life, that's one state of ornaments. If there is another life, that's another set of ornaments. And the ornaments keep changing. But the content of the ornaments, which is you, doesn't change. That is the vivarta upadana karanam. Swaswarupa apparityagena rupantara apattihiti vivarta. See this? And this only comes from if you follow the teaching. Ishvara says, hey, there's something funny that is going on, you should know that. Don't get upset by it. It looks different to you, that's all. And here Swami Akhandananda, it's very interesting. In from verses 75 to 86 of the Aparokshanubhuti, Swamiji, or not Swamiji, but Adi Sankara has given. You don't have to look at the book, you just follow. I'm just quickly going through that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But I'm just giving you a reference. You don't have to look at it right now. In verses 75 to 86, he gives various ways where things look different to us than they are. This is what he's talking about. So one of them is, he says, supposing you are sitting in a boat, or you are sitting in a train. What the outside looks like is completely different. And you're in a boat, the land outside looks up and down. If you're in a train, you find that the trees are moving very fast. So it's just a question of the relativity on how you see it. That's exactly what happens. Another example, if you have jaundice, things look yellow to you. They are not really yellow, but they look yellow. Another example, this is all from Adi Sankara, by the way. Another example, and this is what the children love to do. You spin around over and over and over and over and over, spinning, spinning, spinning. Then when you stop spinning, the world keeps spinning. It doesn't spin, but from the eyes of this interesting action on the part of the children, they can fall down. This is what happens. Our 2-year-old is starting to do that. She loves to spin. I don't know where she picked it up from school. She goes to day school, and other people must do that. So we have to stop her after a couple of spins and say, don't do it anymore, you'll fall down. So this is another example. Then of course the most famous example in this, which is given in the Mandukya Karika, in the 4th Karika, it's called Alata Shanti Prakaranam. Alata Shanti is a firebrand. And in fact, in the old days, I'm actually reading this. I didn't know this until I read Swami Akhandananda's explanation. But it's very similar to it, like the agarbatti. This has a tip which is glowing, and you have a stick. And so that's what it is. But in the Alata Shanti, both sides are lighted up. So Swami Akhandananda says that in the villages, this was a very common thing. There were people who became so still, so skilled that they would have this double-edged, a stick with fire burning on both sides of it, and they would twirl it in different ways, and they would just make different shapes out of it. And this is what the Alata Shanti is. That is exactly how our mind works. You believe it or not, we have a spinning mind that makes things look different than what they are. This is another example. Another example Swamiji, Adi Sankara says is, things look smaller from a distance. So all these examples, including this one, very important example, is that how big the thing is can be viewed from different views. You don't know how the thing is. Like, for example, the stars, how small they look. If, I don't know, I'm just making it up, they are probably at least 100,000, if not 1,000,000 times larger than our Earth. Huge. But they look very small. So the perception is not reality. That's all that is saying. You can make it look like anything, different from what it is. Another example. And this is from Adi Sankara, so I have no idea how this was done. He says, microbes, if you look through instruments, they become huge. Another example. And so there's a few other ones, I won't go into all of that. All this means, really speaking, that our view, there's a few more. One of them is, this is very interesting, if you see moon through cloudy nights, then the moon appears to be moving and the clouds are stable. In fact, it is the clouds that are moving and the moon is relatively stable. Then perhaps one of the more important ones. If you lose directions, dik brahmaha, then the right direction looks wrong, the wrong direction looks right, north looks south. It is totally disorienting. And it's a interesting experience. I'm sure that I certainly have gone through that. Totally different from what the reality is. So, in the verses 87 to 88, it concludes to say that when you see Atma correctly, these relative views disappear. So, in essence, you see, look at this. This is interesting. We talked about Nishchalaha. Nishchalaha. Remember this about 4 or 5 classes before, I think in one of the ones that came in. Atma is Nishchalaha. What does that mean? That means the Atma does not move. It cannot move. So, one illustration of that would be, you're going in a car And when you're going in the car space appears to move. Car space appears to move. But this is not reality. Car space means space. Car spaces, room spaces, you can all talk about these different ones. They are space. So when a car moves, does the space move? No. The car is moving. But it appears as though the car space is moving. It's exactly what is happening in our life. I don't quite understand that I am an immovable Atma, Nishchalaha. And this is something you can meditate on and experience. You can experience this. I remember, I think I already told you this, maybe it's a repetition, that when this was explained to me by Swami Chinmayananda in the very beginning, in one of the camps that I took a couple of camps with him, these kinds of 1 week camp. So I would go to that. And I really tried to experience this. And to a certain extent I was able to do it. But of course, this is what happens. You have so many other doubts that, as Swami Viditatmananda was saying, that it takes a while for the mind to kind of get educated. But for a while I could actually tell that my body is moving in my consciousness. And the consciousness itself is nothing but jnana abdhi. It is the very ocean. And at least in the ocean also it is moving, but this is chidakasha. This Chidakasha doesn't move. And at least you can do this, just stay yourself quietly. And it's not possible if you're talking to others and busy doing this, that or the other, but if you just spend some time just walking by yourself, you can feel this. You can feel the vivarta upadana karana. Vivarta upadana karana means you can tell, my goodness, there is movement in me, but I am not moving. I am the same. I am the same from a time standpoint. I am the same from a location standpoint. There is no point, there is no place where I am not. There is no time when I am not. And the specificity of my individuality is in me. That is not me, but it is in me. And it is inconsequential, because nothing disturbs my nischalata, my anantata. This is not just bookish knowledge or theory or bhakti, or maybe one day I will. No, this is a fact. everyday fact. You should see this. You're already there. Your inability to see this clearly will also go. So really all of these funny notions that I am such and such person, I am doing this, I was born that, is exactly like all these examples that we went through. These are not reality, they are views of the reality. And the views can be all different. I'm like a star which is million miles away, million miles wide, and I look small. These are all views of myself. Anyway, so this is mananam. This is how one has to think. And you have to think after the facts have been given to you. You are very familiar with the phenomena called vivarta upadana karanam. You are very familiar with the distinction between parinama and vivarta. And it looks like parinama. Look at it, just from what we did in meditation today, for example. It looks like parinama because it looks like my dream is over. Last night, how did you sleep? Oh, I slept well, but there was this one dream that was bothering me. Anyway, that's gone. Now I'm awake. And when you go to sleep, then this waking state, he says, so what kind of a day it is? He says, oh, it was nice, but I don't feel like sleep. I don't feel like talking right now. I'm very sleepy. So you go to sleep. It looks like a parinama. See? All the changes from Jagrata Avastha to Swapna Avastha to Sushupti Avastha, all looks like parinama. One is gone, the next one is come. One is gone, next one is come. At least it repeats itself. This is where I think the Shastra says, do you know how important 24 hours are? This whole concept of 24 hours, a complete circle. What a creation by Ishvara. Same thing. Repeated. And if we are not wizened up to it, it is taking us to a drastic change from one life to the other. Each day is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to understand that what happened during the last 24 hours and what is going to happen in the next 24 hours is an invitation for me to see I am not a parinami karanam, I am vivarta karanam. I am the same person that has different states. None of those really affect me. Just like you have different ornaments, none of those ornaments affects me, the gold. This is what Shastra says, this is the way you should be thinking, my dear. Don't think of, one day is gone, what are we going to do next day? Then it's just thoughtlessness. If you want to do it, fine. Be my guest. But you're inviting death. If you want to be free of death, recognize that you already are free of death, but you don't see it. That's all. And how are you free of death? Because Brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangaha. You are not the roles, you are the person that is playing the roles. This is how you defeat death. So this is what the progression of the thinking has to be. This is what really Mananam comes out to be. So we'll continue with this. So I think what I'll try to do at the 11 o'clock class, so yeah, I'm pretty sure, I am going to try to wind up the section before Nididhyasanam in the next class. So, let's say half of the next class, even less than that. I think I've pretty much covered most of the things. Next class meaning, so 1.5, and then tomorrow, we'll think about the exact timing of tomorrow's classes, but I think the final class may have to be either curtailed or changed or modified in some way, because we will ask Swamiji to conclude the entire session, and we might have some Guru Dakshina if Shuddhatma wants to do it. So from my recollection from last year, we may not get a full hour of the second class. We'll get a full hour of the first class. So anyway, what I'm saying is, so we'll have 2.5 hours, maybe 3, and I think we need that much for the Nididhyasanam. So now that makes up my mind. I'm going to conclude this section of Mananam Shravanam by the middle of next class at 11 o'clock, and then we will begin a formal study of Nididhyasanam. Okay, so with that I close the class. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.